Hey everybody, my name is Ellen.
And my name's Alyssa. Welcome back to the Modern Singer Podcast.
Today on the podcast, we're talking about how to stop sabotaging your own career. So what is self-sabotage? We all kind of know a little bit of what that means, but you've probably heard the phrase of self-sabotage before, but understanding what it is and why it happens can make it easier to recognize the pattern and stop it in its tracks. Self-sabotaging behavior is more than just procrastinating or blowing things off. It really refers to actions and thought patterns that interfere with your long-term goals and your overall well-being. Self-sabotaging behavior can occur in a variety of different parts of your life, including work, your goals, personal projects, and even your relationships.
Despite the best of intentions that we all have, sometimes you are your own biggest obstacle. There are a lot of reasons why we might find ourselves acting against the things that we want, and recognizing a pattern is the first step to changing a habit and forming a new one. So let's talk about some of the reasons that you might be self-sabotaging.
So one of them is fear of success. This happens to me all the time. You're worried about what's going to happen. What if it goes your way? This may sound counterintuitive, but for some people, succeeding can bring consequences they may not want, including more responsibility, greater expectations, or even the fear of failure. Imposter syndrome, that's another big one. Like, am I even worthy or ready for it? Essentially, it's not so much of the success they fear, but the added pressure that comes with this kind of change.
Next up, we've got low self-esteem. You know, that little voice in your head that whispers you're not good enough, and the one that also tells you that everyone else is better than you. These thoughts can drive down your self-esteem, which people often use as a means to make their reality align with their inner beliefs, that they aren't as good as the other people in the room. It's a defense mechanism. If you mess up intentionally, it feels like you're in control of the failure, or that it's just an expected character flaw or physical flaw, if you're thinking about singing, that proves your thought process right. And really, it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Another one is avoidance of failure. Nobody likes to fail. I mean, why would you? I don't like to fail. Nobody likes to fail. But for some people, the fear of failure is so huge that they'd rather not try at all. For them, it's easier not to try at all and use that as a self-sabotage mechanism than try their hardest and still not meet their own expectations.
Something else that gets me a lot is the fear of the unknown. I just dealt with a lot of this. If you follow me on my social media, you know that I very recently became a college professor for the first time, which is very exciting. But change is super intimidating, even if it's positive. I was terrified for this change. It all happened at once. I had to quit one or two jobs to start this one because what's familiar feels safe, even if it's not really what you want. Moving outside of your comfort zone is a whole new world that can be really scary. And as a result, you can subconsciously pull yourself back, self-sabotaging your own progress.
Yeah, understanding the root of your self-sabotage is an important step in learning how to exactly overcome it. Once you can kind of start seeing the signs of self-sabotage and recognize the why behind it, then you can learn how to break free from it.
There are a lot of signs of self-sabotage to look out for. Being able to spot them can be your first step towards overcoming them.
One of them is procrastination. Continually delaying or avoiding that important task, even when you know that they're essential for your progress and eventual success.
Negative self-talk, which is engaging in persistent internal dialogue that's highly critical or demeaning to yourself.
Self-isolation, pushing away friends, family, or colleagues, especially in a time of stress or in the wake of a perceived challenge. This makes you unable to ask for or even receive some help and support from your people.
Perfectionism. This is one that I am so guilty of. Setting unattainable standards for yourself and waiting for things to be, quote, perfect before progressing. This can stop anything you're working on because you're setting unachievable goals. You're setting yourself up for failure, which means you might never feel or even be ready.
This one gets me a lot with my anxiety is frequent feelings of regret, dwelling on past mistakes or continually feeling as though you've made the wrong decisions.
Avoiding feedback is the last one I want to talk about. It's feeling defensive whenever criticism, even constructive criticism, is offered. If you can't recognize feedback as a growth tool, it's a sign you might be trying to protect yourself from these perceived threats to your own self-worth. Sometimes criticism is not invited or warranted, like a mean journalist who just didn't like a piece that you performed, so they wrote a scathing review. Not that I have experience with that. And you can just toss it to the side without even really looking deeply into it. It's not about you. They have their own feelings. But the best rule of thumb is if you're hearing the same feedback from either your trusted team, which is your teachers, your coaches, directors, people in your circle that you go to actively for advice, or from outside sources like competition judges 3 or more times, that's when it's time to really start looking at what people are saying. Because when you're getting this repetitive feedback from multiple people who are trying to help you grow, that's when it's time to actively start listening to feedback.
So we talked a lot about what self-sabotaging is, but how do we stop doing it, right? So here are 3 not so easy steps on how to stop self-sabotaging. Overcoming self-sabotage requires conscious effort, patience, and practice. After all, you're literally trying to rewire your brain, right? There are so many different kinds of tools and tricks to help you along the way and set the foundation for a more fulfilling and happier life. Step 1, notice your behavior patterns. You can't change a habit if you're unaware of it in the first place, right? Step 2, being self-aware starts with mindfulness. By being truly present in the moment, you can begin to understand your triggers and patterns. Start to notice the patterns in what comes to mind when you're in the crush of self-sabotage behaviors so that you can use the right tools to counteract them. Step 3, monitor your self-talk with positive affirmations. It sounds silly, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. You can download an app like I Am to give you changing affirmations in a widget on your phone so that there's an easy, constant external stream of affirmations coming your way. If you're like me and creating them yourself seems a little bit of a daunting task, this is really, really nice because it just pops up on your screen and you can look at it, you can read it to yourself out loud or in your brain, and it's a great way to get that practice going every day.
I really like it. I use I Am. It's free. And it's something that has really helped me stay in a positive mindset whenever I get into something that's a little bit more challenging in my life, just to remind myself and help me find a little bit more grounding.
Yep, I use it too. I love it. It's so nice to look at every day.
Here are some helpful tools to use to help change your self-sabotage behaviors. The first one I want to talk about is challenging and changing your inner critic. A useful tool I learned in my time at OperaWorks was to take the time and actually listen to what my brain was saying. If you can, set a spot or a voice that your inner critic uses and try this out in a practice session. So, step 1, start practicing. Easy, check and check. Step 2, when the judgment or doubt comes in, go to what you specified for your inner critic and just stream of consciousness say what they're saying. When they finish a thought, you use your own voice and you say the word and you let them just continue. Usually you'll see that your inner voice has only got a couple of things to say. Mine tends to circulate around the same like 5 or 6. And then they just start repeating themselves. And when you get to a point where you're like, okay, cool, where you acknowledge the words that they're saying, you don't have to agree or even figure out the why behind it, but your subconscious is scared for a reason. So let it be scared. This is the hardest part, is acknowledging it, saying, okay, thank you for trying to keep me safe. I am not currently in danger. Because step 4 is you repeat all of those steps. This can be a really arduous process, and sometimes things that are a lot deeper can come out. So make sure that you set yourself up in a way that is protective to yourself, in a way that you do not feel actively threatened. And then step 5, you set something positive and grounding to do afterwards. This can be exhausting, and it's really good to have some self-care ready and waiting for you, like a bubble bath, a nice meal that you made, or even just some time with a good book or trashy TV to unwind after you put in the work. Let yourself unwind afterwards. My current go-to is I just finished reading the Fourth Wing series, and now I'm rewatching all of Vampire Diaries. Honestly, like, I put in a day's work, I do some really hard stuff, my brain is tired, and I want to turn it off. So we do Vampire Diaries where I don't have to think. And I'm just like, wow, how did this become popular in 2010? And then I look at the fashion. I'm like, oh my God, 2010.
I love that. For me right now, I'm rewatching all of the Marvel movies in order of, not the release, but in order of
chronological.
How the movies are supposed to be. Chronological.
Oh my God. So
chronological.
Tangent moment. So I have been dying. Please, if someone has a list of this, I want to do the movies in chronological order, but add in all of the TV show episodes in chronological order, because I know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like goes around some of them too, and then there's other TV shows, and if someone has a list, I have been dying to do that.
That's got to be on the internet somewhere.
It has to
so
be.
Good.
I can't be the only one that's thought
good.
of this.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, some of the episodes go like, yep.
Yeah.
That's a really good thought.
Yeah.
If somebody has that, please send it to us.
Please do.
Make sure you start by setting achievable goals. We talked a lot about this in episode 51 on setting SMART goals and how to break them all down. So if you haven't listened to that episode after this one, definitely go check that one out. It's a really, really great way to start. Self-sabotage gets perpetuated by feelings that you can't do anything right anyway. So setting a plan in place gives you the tools you need to overcome the nebulous feeling of overwhelm.
Support your mental and physical health with helpful habits. Your daily habits matter. Your body and your mind are interconnected. So by nurturing your physical health through regular exercise, balanced nutrition, and routinely getting a good night's sleep, you're also supporting your mental well-being. This has been your daily TED Talk with your singing personal trainer.
And make sure you reflect on your dreams, values, and priorities. Dream big when it comes to your goals. Visualization is about seeing your future success while actively taking lots of smaller steps. Reflecting on your goals each step of the way as you work to achieve them can really help you stay focused and determined. You can also make a vision board, which is super fun. You get a little crafty, physical or virtual if you'd like, to give yourself something a little bit more tangible.
Oh my God, did I show you my vision board that I made for this year?
I don't think so. We talked about it.
Hold on, let me show you. So, it's this.
Oh my gosh.
Look at how fun it is.
That is fun.
Like, I'm planning a trip to London with Brennan. My word of the year is engage. LOL, the word focus is on here very large. I've got cats. There's plants,
so cute,
because I'm
though.
trying to not kill plants. The words Spice Books Pleasure is on here. And then a pigeon. I don't know why.
A pigeon?
I was
Why is
really
a pigeon
drawn to
on
the
there?
pigeon. I'm like, no, New York, pigeon.
Oh, perfect.
And some crystals.
It's so cute. I love it. And it's like a fun, it's like an art piece too, right? You're not just...
like it's displayed above my desk. I made it with my girlfriends. So,
Oh, that's fun.
It was a really fun
like a fun
thing to
night
do
out.
together. And
Yeah.
brings me into finding an accountability buddy because they are some of mine.
I love that.
Sharing your goals can make a huge difference. Choose an accountability partner. It can be a friend, a mentor who can offer support when needed, maybe a teacher, or even a coach. They'll be there to celebrate your wins and successes with you and keep you motivated when things get tough. Pick someone who will be prepared to point out when they notice you need to make a change in a way that you're receptive to. Sometimes that's tough love. It can be regular check-ins, being your biggest cheerleader, or any other way that you enjoy receiving feedback. For me, I do like a little bit of tough love, but I like tough love with a side of you're still doing awesome. Yeah, so something I say to my students is, I have this thing that I do. I made it up entirely. I have no idea how I even thought of this, honestly, other than I just kept seeing all of my students being so negative with themselves after they sang a really hard song. They would stop and go, this was wrong, that was wrong, I suck, the end. And I'm over here going, no. We're going to do something called a 3-2-1. Please feel free to use this. Tag me. I love this method. It's challenging at first, but it is so good for you. It helps to retrain your brain. So 3-2-1 is, right after you're done singing, you do not start with the negatives. You say 3 positive things that you just did. I don't care if it's, I breathed in the right place, my diction was good, my feet were planted on the ground, amaze. But you have to phrase them in a positive way. Like, I will make my students rephrase if they're like, yeah, well, I didn't do this right, but this was like stronger than when I was bad at it. And I'm like, no, rephrase. Say it positively first.
Started with a negative. Yeah.
Correct. So you start with the positive, and then you go to the 2, which is 2 things you want to work on, because when you choose to work on too many things at once, your brain gets overwhelmed and then nothing changes. Because you celebrate first. You did, yes, I did this awesome thing. Cool. I did a hard thing and I did really well, but I'm a human, so things can always get better. That's why we're in school. That's why we train. So you pick 2 things that you want to work on. Sometimes it's finding your breath. Maybe it's your diction. Maybe it's an acting choice that you're looking to find. Maybe it's that one goddamn measure of coloratura that will not stay. Who cares? Pick 2 things, no more than 2 things. And then 1 is any questions. Maybe you have questions about, is that actually how I pronounce that word? Is this the right translation? Any questions that you have. So it's a 3-2-1. I really like it. And that's how I like to hold my students accountable in a way that is both loving and supportive, but also gives them steps to continue their progress.
I love that.
I don't think I've ever talked about that on the podcast before.
I don't think you have it, or even to me, I don't think I've ever heard that. I love that so much. And you can translate that, take that out of the practice room, out of your voice lessons too, and take that into, like what I do, like my admin job, like you could really translate that into any field, anything that you're doing. I love that so much. And that segues really well into practicing self-compassion. We need to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding as you would your best friend. You would never tell your best friend a super negative thing right away, or like, oh, that sucked. Like you would talk to yourself like that. So,
I mean, granted, sometimes I will talk to my friends and go, cool, that's a fashion choice.
Right. But like on things that like they're really working on, or like, they feel vulnerable about, you're not going to just start with a negative right away, right? Mm-hmm. Every single person has their setbacks. Like you said, we're all human. So instead of getting caught up in the negative self-talk, acknowledge what has gone wrong and learn from it, and just use that to help you move forward.
So the last thing I want to talk about is seeking professional help. Sometimes the roots of self-sabotage can be very deep-seated and even tied to past traumas or experiences. If you're struggling to stop self-sabotaging, it might be a good idea to seek guidance from a therapist or a counselor. They can offer invaluable, professionally trained insights and coping strategies specific to your needs and help you to achieve your fullest potential. I know I have a therapist. Her name's Liz. She's awesome, and she helps me realize that I'm not losing my absolute marbles. And I would be nowhere without therapy. I have gone through so many different iterations of myself over the last, honestly, even 6 months of coming to terms with the fact that I am living a lot smaller than my goals and trying to grow myself to be in line with the life that I'm trying to build for myself. And it's been a really, really great way to have an added person on my team that has nothing to do with music. And it's all about just getting my brain to be nicer.
And your therapist doesn't live in your life day to day like your friends do or your partner does. And so it's a really great way to kind of check in with somebody who doesn't see your day to day, right? Who doesn't see how you are all the time or listen to your day or anything like that, and can just really take an outsider perspective on everything that you're telling them.
Thank you so much for listening. We are so glad to have you here. If you haven't already, make sure that you are subscribed, and you can even rate and review the show to help us reach new followers. If you really loved this episode, we would love to see you tag us in your stories so that we can connect with more of our followers.
And don't forget to check out our show notes for all of our resources. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Today on the podcast, we're talking about how to stop sabotaging.
How to stop what?
How to stop sabotage.
Let me currently sabotage you.
Sabotage. Oh my God.